All right, it's 6 p.m., December 18th. We're having our bi-monthly select board meeting. We'll start with a roll call. Present are Jeff, Mike, and Josh, selectmen. Brian, town manager. Kelsey, Michelle, town clerks. Matt, fire chief. And with us we have Samuel and Katie Eaton. Let's start the meeting with a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start. First item is going to be an open session. Normally limited to 2 minutes per chair. Sam and Katie Eaton are here. The floor is yours.
I'm basically coming in order to discuss some concerns with the plowing that's been happening. I believe it was the storm on the 5th. Our road was not even fully plowed until about 10 o'clock. And then we didn't even have any sand down at all until the next day. Had spoke directly with the gentleman that was doing the plowing. He assured me somebody would be coming by to do it. It was about 8:30 when he drove by on Silver's Mills.
8:30 in the evening.
In the morning, yeah.
8:30 in the evening.
And still hadn't had anything happen for about an hour and a half. So I had called the town office at about 9:38 to express my concern. Still was, I got told that basically we'd be getting more sand down there. Nothing had happened. My wife had arrived home roughly at about 11 o'clock for me to grab my own sand, to sand up Brockway Mills for me to get my work vehicle back up to my house. Once my work vehicle was there, I basically kept an eye out to take a look around to see about when the plow guy was going to be coming through with the sand. At about, I believe it was about 3:20 in the evening, I actually drove to the town office again to express my concerns. I was told that the sand truck was on its way down, and by that next morning there was still no sand.
What was the date on that?
I believe it was the storm on the 5th.
And you live on Brockway Mills?
I live on Ames Lane off Brockway Mills.
Okay.
It's the first road on the left.
But you're discussing Brockway Mills
And Silver's Mills,
and
yes.
Silver's Mills, okay. Because we don't take care of Ames Lane.
No, Ames Lane's personal.
Okay.
So that was the first snowstorm.
That was
Oh, no, that was the second one. Thanksgiving was the first big storm, right?
Yeah, I actually went out the morning, Thursday morning following that and did, well, Josh and I had both got complaints from several areas in town. And he and I both went out and rode around different areas and checked roads. And there were some concerns that I came back and I called Chris and I said, look, we've got some areas here we need to, and Chris assured me he would get right on them, and to the best of my knowledge he did, because when I went back and checked again, he had, had taken care of the issues.
That was on the 6th.
Yeah, that was a Friday. You and I talked, well, you and I were talking on the phone while I was out riding and checking.
Yep.
So, yeah, they probably could have, like I said, there were a few areas where they weren't quite as timely as we ideally would have liked.
We had the Thanksgiving storm. We had some issues on Dowdy Hill. We had a big pile up there, and it could have been done better. And I think one of the things that we all need to keep in mind as we navigate through this, every single thing that we do in the town is a balancing act. And I think the best approach is just what Brian is talking about. Compared to other contractors, we get a really good price on the services we're getting. So for us, being able to balance everybody being happy and not raising everybody's taxes to do it, to move to a bigger contractor, that's the balance we gotta try to figure out.
And to be fair to Chris and Warren New, is any issue I have brought to them in these, and I've only been here 3 months obviously, but in a couple of storms, every issue I've brought to them, they've been very responsive, both of them. You know, yeah, Brian will get right on it. And, you know, I don't expect to snap my fingers and have these guys be able to get right out and do it right then. I've driven truck, I've plowed and sanded roads. Excuse me. I understand that, you know, they have to get certain things done, they have to come back, reload with sand, that it may not be an instant type of situation. Now, I actually have property on the Moulton Road off Brockway Mills. So Brockway Mills is not a foreign road to me. I've been driving over it all seasons, basically for my entire life. And, you know, sometimes it's better than others. But overall, and I checked in with some of the people that I know that live further up the road, and, you know, they felt things were okay, so.
One of the other things that I understood is the storm that we're talking about. Chris had a major malfunction on one of the trucks too. They blew the valve body out of the side of the hydraulic pump. Your concerns were just one of many. Same thing. I myself had a number of complaints. We're very, very aware of what's going on, and I feel like we've had some conversation with Chris and Warren, and we just need to, they understand what our expectations are, and they understand what the contract says. So it's just up to us to make sure that happens. At this point, I don't think.
And I do try to go out and ride every road at some point during every storm. And if I don't, Josh does. Or, you know, it's not uncommon for us to meet each other riding around or be on the phone with each other while we're riding around talking about different roads. So we're getting out that the oversight is there as well.
So it's not falling on deaf ears. We've heard the complaints, and we've made forward motion in getting through it. And Chris and Warren's, my interpretation, they were receptive of our constructive criticism. So now at this point, we just need to see where it goes from here. If it were to continue to be a problem, then we'd have to get back together and talk about it again. At this point, I'd like to give them a chance to do what they're supposed to do. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's the route that I think as a group we've decided we're taking, is we've had the conversation, and we're just gonna keep our eyes open and see what happens. I feel pretty confident that we'll get through it. And I really, the other side of that conversation is looking at what other municipalities pay for those services. We're fairly fortunate to have them for what we have them for money too. That's why you look at mill rate, look at tax rate in other towns around us, and it's a lot heavier mill rate. And that's one of the reasons, is we have a real good buy on our winter services. So as I said when we started, this is a balancing act, everything we do. Balancing people like you being happy with what we can do for the money that we have. Is that the answer you're looking for? Because that's the answer at this
I
point.
mean, I ain't looking for nothing in particular, I'm just worried in general, just because we've had 3 storms, and I've had 3 storms that I couldn't even get up the hill in my work vehicle to get to work. So I've missed 3 days of work with 3 storms we've had so far this year.
Did you have the same problems last year?
No, because I didn't have the work vehicle last year, I used my Suburban.
But even the truck, we didn't have those issues with the truck
But
last
even
year.
with the truck, I didn't have those issues last year, but
So you think this year's different than last year?
Definitely.
Okay.
so that's why I'm just concerned, because it's the beginning of the winter, we're seeing a lot more snow than we usually do.
Yep. I do think that that's, it shouldn't be, but I do think it's part of it. It's kind of an odd year that way.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are as prepared as we should be, myself included.
I'm getting there.
Yeah. All right, well, if there's anything that changes, we'll let you know, and we'll look forward to hearing hopefully good remarks from you the next storm.
Well, I appreciate
I
you
wanna,
guys hearing from me.
you know, we wanna know that the problem's corrected, and
And I'll keep checking on the Brockway Mills Road.
Okay. Thank you.
we'll do the very best we can. All right, we're gonna move on. No other open sessions, nobody else here. So. Item 3, we'll sign the minutes of the board meeting. Thank you.
You have your board minutes and then the special town
The
meeting.
special town meeting.
Yep.
Yeah. I've already read these. They're nice and pink, Michelle.
Just for you.
So we really think we're going to be better served by looking at some other options for that when the contract comes up on that particular copier. Not to mention it takes up half the office.
Which isn't much.
We don't have the minutes listed on here for the special town meeting, but we have the minutes.
You do, because I wasn't clear if you sign those or not. If it's a special town meeting, if you sign them or if you don't, because I don't remember, we didn't have a lot of special town meetings last year.
My interpretation is any public meeting is supposed to have,
Be
that
signed.
you're supposed to have minutes, you're supposed to sign them.
Okay, so that was a questionable thing for me, and I didn't put it on, I added it at the last minute.
Okay, so we'll just we're gonna read and sign the minutes to the special town meeting. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, review of the treasurer's warrants. Item A is payroll 87 and 88. Okay, the next item is accounts payable number 89. It's a good month's worth of reading right there.
I got the lines this time.
I see that.
I also today, we were at Home Depot. I got some locks for the pods,
Oh, okay, great.
and they're not keys, it's a combination code.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
Will depend on Josh to memorize and be the keeper of the combinations.
Huh?
Just keep them on my phone, in case we head up north.
I used too much.
Okay, so the warrants are signed. We're gonna move on to item 5, old business. The only item for old business is the town tax acquired property and the next steps we're taking on that.
Okay, we did, as you remember, I think it was the last regular meeting, or the meeting before, gave the people an extension to pay the taxes and buy the property back if they paid the taxes in full within 7 days from the last meeting. Michelle and I said we'll call it 7 business days, so we gave them until December 5th, which was actually the day after our last meeting. I spoke with a woman on the 5th, and she said they just couldn't come up with that money by the end of the day. Conversation was positive, she understood our position, and as I stated to her, the law on tax acquired property is then we move to sell it, and any profit made, or once our expenses and the taxes are taken out of it, the rest of the money goes back to them. So, they understand that, they were disappointed, but they understood. So, I just checked, to yesterday, day before something, I contacted Jamie Gilbert, real estate agent that lives in town. I've heard back from her, she's gonna meet with me either tomorrow or Friday to take the next steps to list the property and liquidate it. And we just probably need a vote from the board to take that next step so that we have it in the records, that it's legal and clean, and that we have a board vote on every step of the process.
So in this situation, we have 2 options. We can list it with a realtor, or we can put it out to bid. And I think
the way the law has changed, we no longer have that put it out to bid option.
I think we have to go
I
to,
believe we have.
I really
to go
feel
there.
the realtor thing is better, because you're gonna have a closing, and any liens and all that, we're just, it's gonna be cleaner.
I
and
did,
better.
Michelle and I both at different times checked the county registry, there are no other liens on the property that are listed on the deed.
Well, it's a shame to. So, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to list that tax acquired property.
I second that motion. It's a vote. So, and Jamie being the, as far as I know, the only realtor living in Sangerville, isn't she?
I don't know what Betty's doing these days. I
I
mean,
don't think she's doing anything now. But staying home.
I say, I ain't seen her name up in a long time.
No, I haven't either.
I would rather patronize a Sangerville.
Well, Betty does live in Sangerville.
Right.
But like me, barely, but we're there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Who's she work for?
Jamie,
Next
next gen.
Next.
She responded very quickly. I emailed her either yesterday or the day before, and
She's very aggressive.
heard back from her within a day. She said she's coming back from vacation. She get with me the end of the week, so.
She's just a job pretty well.
She does.
So,
So we don't need a motion on who we're having to, we're gonna move forward with Jamie.
that's up to you. If you guys direct me to go forward with her, well,
I'm good with it.
I think we're good. So,
It's just up the street.
Okay, so we can move on. So we've made a motion to list the property. And Jamie Gilbert's got an appointment to make that happen. Okay, new business. First item, Corinna abatements for 22 and 23.
you should have, they have that in their packet, don't they?
It's one copy
It's
here.
sitting up there, yes. So earlier in the year, there was a request through Josh for the 2024 abatement for the Corinna gravel pit.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh had told me that he expected that there would be more, she would probably ask for 23 and 22. But nothing came, so I never saw any other paperwork come until just recently. So that's what you have. I've printed everything off from Josh and from Lois for your review.
Lois explained to me on the phone the other day that they had, through the process of trying to determine how many years of gravel and sand they had left in that pit. And I was unclear whether they resurveyed it or just looked at the survey and found out the survey was wrong. But they had been paying taxes on 47 acres and they found that they did not own that many acres there.
So that's what
Lois
they,
being the town manager in Sangerville, or, well, she used to be town manager in
no,
Corinna.
Corinna. So
So-
that's what the abatement is for, is just for the lot size?
That was my understanding.
Or is it lot size and lot value because the pit's depleted?
That,
I-
I'm not real clear on that. I believe it's
I
the
believe-
change in the acreage is what I.
That was my
So it states in
understanding.
it, it's the change in the acreage. That's what they wrote down.
Yeah. Again, I didn't turn my computer on this week.
I just read it before. We were
Yeah.
sitting here waiting.
And I can't remember, I know they said the original acreage they thought was 47 acres and what is it?
So who are we
Yes.
believing on the acreage?
Well, that's the question, do we? Or do we ask for a survey?
Yeah, so they're claiming, and they're assessed for 47 acres, which is incorrect, and they should be assessed for 26.2.
So wouldn't that be clear to Josh first?
Should be.
Should validate that?
Yes, it should be.
I think somewhere
What
in the
he-
email is.
I don't know if
says we talked to
he-
Forster.
Saw a survey, I have not talked to Josh as far as like what proof he had, or if he just took their word.
I think before we make a move on it, we ought to know how big the lot is, that's all.
I agree.
And didn't you say something about 180 days?
Right, it was 180 days. That's when you can go from the commitment date to, and they have 180 days to file for an abatement. And she would know these rules. And I believe that came in after the date.
And we're talking about $125 and $144 for this year.
Right.
With trucks that beat our road every day.
It's a pretty big discrepancy, 20 acres.
You
How
wouldn't
does
know,
that-
you wouldn't know that
Yeah.
in your purchase?
I mean, I can understand an acre
pay
or
for
something being off, but 20-something
I mean,
acres.
that's about half the size. I guess if we were to do anything with it, we'd have to validate the lot size. We'd have to know that it was 26.
Somebody needs to provide us with a survey.
Right.
And I would think the onus would be on the town of Corinna to provide that survey.
And for $125 and $144, you could do a $5,000 survey or a $2,000 survey. It just doesn't make sense in my eyes, but.
Well, and I don't know how long they've been charged incorrectly. You know, I mean, they can only go back 3 years.
I was gonna say, I know they bought that pit back, geez, I'm not sure, but I was working for the town of Kerner, which would have been close to 40 years ago. They've owned it for quite some time.
I've been trucking out of this since I was a kid, 38 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a hard thing, for what little tiny bit of taxes they're paying, the amount of abuse our roads take for it. Which doesn't play into the law at all, but still.
There's gotta be some homework done on that.
Yeah, you think we're beyond the 180-day period?
Yeah, the other day, on that green one right there, we're 190 something days in. And that came in 2 days after I think that one did. So we're right around the 190 days.
Which is, in theory, beyond abatement. I think I'd like to make a motion on this, unless you got something else, Josh.
I was just gonna say we ought to ask for a survey if they wanted to.
I'd like to make a motion that, in order for us to look at this, they're gonna need to provide a survey or something documenting the lot size. And that being said, if we're beyond the 180 days, that is just so we're not sitting here next year doing the same thing. I think we're beyond the 180 days, but I think if they would like us to change it, they need to document the lot size. So I'd like to make a motion that the town of Corinna bring us documentation on their lot size before we do any abatements, now and in the future.
Second.
So,
I will send a letter.
okay, next item on new business is December 30th board meeting.
We need, as we all know, our fiscal year ends December 31st. We need the selectmen to basically approve us to pay some bills that are gonna come due between now and the end of the year. We really can't, I mean, we can't do anything unless you guys authorize it. So we're going to be closed on December 31st to close the books. So we thought that December 30th. Now, the other thought that I had after Michelle brought this to my attention, we determined that we needed to do this, and December 30th made the most sense, is we had, at the last meeting, moved our January 1 meeting to January 8. Do we want to have a regular selectmen's meeting on December 30th in lieu of the January 1 meeting and not have a meeting January 8th? Okay, yeah, it's your decision, gentlemen,
I
not
already told
mine.
my wife I got 2 weeks off.
Okay,
I'm not going down that road again.
basically this would be a special selectmen's meeting simply to come in and sign the warrant. We have to post it, we have to have an official meeting, we have to do it all legally, but you don't have to have a long agenda. We can have a 10-minute agenda, sign the warrant, and
We've done that before, right? Just at the town office, go in, advertise the meeting
Yes.
and just go into the town office and,
Well, and
Record
something
the meeting.
different this year that we're gonna do is because of trying to get everything in line, we're gonna be closed the whole day on the 31st, rather than just a half a day. Which I guess in the past, they've closed at noon time. We're gonna close the whole day to make sure that everything is in line. I can work with Trio, they're gonna be there all day. So if I run into problems, I can call them and they can help me. So,
so closed the
and
31st.
we'll get signs up for that too, that we're gonna be closed the whole day on the 31st.
Okay.
so what we'll do then is I'll post an agenda what, be the 27th, a Friday, post the agenda, it's very brief, special selectmen's meeting, December 30th, 6 PM at the town office, one item on the agenda.
Right.
To.
Close out the year or whatever.
Close out the year. So that people are aware of it, they can attend if they want to, but I can't imagine anybody really has a great desire to show up and see you guys sign your name. Each sign your name.
What day of the week's that fall on?
Monday.
It's a Monday.
Yeah.
Fit that in your schedule, Mike.
Yeah. So we're not gonna meet again till January 8th for the select board.
That's what I'm hearing is the preferred decision here. Cause we've
I
already
mean,
made that.
we could do a meeting on Monday, but you guys are all gonna be at the house begging.
We'll just make decisions without you.
No, I don't care, we can, I mean, if
It's
you
a-
guys wanna do the one on the 30th,
I'm over it, if I can do it. I'm not what you are.
And I am too, I just want this to be easy for them to just get through. So it looks to me like we'd have that meeting, what time does the town office close? On
Normally
Monday?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
We could do it right at 5 o'clock if you want.
Well, that's kinda what I was thinking, if we did Monday the 30th at 5 o'clock, and they're closed the 31st, and they're closed Wednesday the 1st.
Uh-huh.
that way you guys ain't having to stay real late either.
Right, well, that's what I'm thinking, so they don't, they can get on with it.
Right.
We will probably still be in there on Wednesday, the 1st. To get everything ready for the auditors and get that all lined up and ready to go. So hopefully not the whole day, but
I'm taking that day off, and I'm probably not gonna be there. So,
Well, I'm only gonna be there if absolutely necessary, so.
well,
And that's what I prefer to have the two of these two there, only if it's absolutely necessary.
do we need a motion to make a meeting date, or we just discussion?
I think just discussion's fine.
Yep.
I mean, we still have to follow the legal rules, which is
Post
post
it.
agenda at least 24 hours in advance, so I'll post it on Friday.
Yep. Are you guys good with, right at 5 o'clock when they close, we'll do the meeting, and
Yep.
it's a date?
okay.
She sounded way too excited about that.
Okay.
I like it when things come together.
Next item C, is general assistance ordinance to be signed by the board. And this is previously discussed. I don't think there's any more discussion needed. Just-
Quite honestly, there's really not much choice on it. State law kind of requires it.
Yep.
You want a picture of me?
It's already printed. They put it in there for you, Mike.
We gotta get him a t-shirt that says Captain Obvious.
So the one thing that did not include, I don't think it's that packet, is the next subject is at the very end of the day yesterday, we got a Trio update email.
That's true, you emailed it out to
I
me.
did, and if you
I
didn't.
saw that. I
Did
did
you
see
see
that.
that?
I did see
Okay. Of course, you wouldn't see it if you didn't open your computer, so
I
did you see
didn't.
it, Mike? I don't have any copies, did you?
I didn't copy
I didn't
it.
either, I just
I
sent
read,
it out.
I read it online.
I mean, I personally feel this is kind of like you guys' choice on what we should, because you were the ones dealing with it, right?
Well,
Unfortunately, if we don't go this route, it's gonna make Michelle and Kelsey's job very difficult.
yeah, because they're not gonna fix anything that's broken with the sequel, which is what we have. So it's go to Trio Web, or stick with the old horse and hope it keeps going. Although I've heard from other towns, then there's glitches with it, they're not real happy with it, but they have no choice. It's kind of you being forced to go this route, and there's nobody else that will do the municipal software.
Cost?
I
If-
don't have the cost.
If we go this route right now, I think it was 2,666 and change, that sticks in my mind.
For the year?
Is it-
Right, because they're giving us a $2,000 discount if we sign up before December 31st,
Right.
which is why we pushed it and put it on the agenda.
It's over 5,000 if we do it after the 31st.
Do you remember about what we pay now?
For the whole package of what we have currently is 9,600 and something.
Okay. And that's built into the,
And that's for all the different modules that we have.
96.79.
96.79.
And this is additional to this?
This would be above, yes, to get this program
Well,
upgraded.
wait, there must be a cost for the old program that's gonna go away.
I would think so, yes. They haven't given us an estimate of what it altogether would be with our modules.
Do we
I
have
didn't
a
see that.
contract with these guys? Like is there something written somewhere that?
Not that I've seen, no.
I'm not 100% sure we had all our contracts.
No.
I would imagine not with the molds and the different
So
people.
we keep searching, we keep looking, but our contract book that we use, that we have the majority of contracts in, there is no contract for Trio in there.
Right.
So we could be looking at a $2,500 increase on that 9,000.
It could be, yeah.
So right now, we're 96.79.26, and our budget was 89.25.
Yep. So that was the increase
what current-
this year. So
Okay.
last year we paid the 89, this year was the 96.
I mean, if that's the route we gotta go, we gotta go.
If we have to have it, we have to have
Right.
You're not gonna operate without
We're
Trio.
kind of at gunpoint here from a single service provider that we're required to have to do business.
Now, what I understand that Town Cloud is working on trying to pick up some of these different modules and different processes that towns do. So I know they're in the development stage of some of that.
But they were also honest with us that they're not there yet.
Exactly, exactly.
So as they come online with their versions of these modules, we can drop
We
that
can-
piece with Trio?
We can evaluate it.
Yeah,
I
we'll
would say.
evaluate it first and see if it
Because
will
it-
do what we need it to do.
Because they're not, their packages are not gonna be free either.
No.
I mean, there's gonna be additional cost and we need to evaluate whether that, I mean, the state of Maine is pretty heavily invested in Trio.
They are.
And that's kind of where we're,
it. I think most municipalities use Trio.
almost all of them do.
And I think they've even gone into like county commissioners and some of these other.
The sheriff's office has Trio.
I was gonna say, some of these other branches in towns have also picked up Trio.
So what do you need from us, Michelle, to,
Just the okay to go ahead and sign this contract so that we can save ourselves $2,000.
Yeah,
So do we have to pay it this year now
We have
ahead
to
of
be
time, or do they say
committed.
it's just committed?
Committed, and I don't know if they have to receive payment by the 31st. That I'm not sure, because I didn't read it all the way through. But at the same time, if you look at your financials, we
That's-
have quite a carryover right now. So even if we did pay for it this year, it would still be covered. Our budget's covered in that.
that was gonna be my next question.
Say go for it.
So do we need a vote, or you just,
why don't you vote to make
Yeah.
it nice and clean?
okay?
I'll make a motion that we approve the Trio upgrade.
Second.
Vote,
Thank you.
it's a vote. Okay, next item, item E, Raymond Mountain abatement application.
He's the green folder. He brought that in to us the other day. I think it was yesterday.
I was
Yesterday.
gonna say, it was either Monday or yesterday.
It was yesterday, and he evidently didn't understand that there was a time limit on the commitments and the application for abatement. So I explained it to him, said I would bring it to you you could look at it, we could approach Josh, have Josh look at it. But I brought it here because the date's 190 something days in.
I just have Josh look at it.
Yeah,
Does he reside in this town, or is that just a piece
Ray?
of property?
I don't know.
I don't.
No, I don't believe, last I knew he still lived in Dexter
Dexter.
or Exeter.
but the
Well,
property
he
is,
owns,
he's got his mailing address is 1080 Silver's Mills Road, and his physical address is the same.
well, maybe he does live there now.
Well,
He'd be
physical
your-
address
He'd be
is-
your neighbor.
He's further down the road, but 1080, that's gonna be,
Pretty close to the line.
That should be down
It's
past
close to the
Mills,
line,
isn't
isn't
it?
it?
it's past Newton's, yeah, it's close to the line.
Yeah, it's close to the line.
He might-
Nine, or George's is 9 something.
Yeah, you're gonna
He
be
might
close to
live
town.
there, he might actually,
He's down the line.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a real estate assessor, so I don't really know.
And I'm not sure how much his taxes went up, he quoted it, but I don't remember yesterday afternoon, it seemed like it went up $1,200.
12 or 1,500 dues. 1,200.
So he's assessed at 216,060, and he's requesting a $56,060 reduction in property value.
I think, being a resident, we should have Josh look at it,
I
and we
do,
ought to hear
yeah.
it out, just because he is a resident, you know.
Yep, I do too.
And you have the same situation with the next one that's also on the line. She brought hers in last week. And again, they brought it in, I didn't get to talk to Angie, but I don't think they understood the 180-day abatement timeframe. And I'm not sure if she has contacted, I suggested that they contact Josh. I'm not sure if they did do that, so, but those are the three that are now.
when I met with Josh this
Oh, question.
morning, he didn't mention any of this, but on the other hand, we were meeting for a very specific situation.
And this one, the assessed value is 202,570, and they're requesting a $100,000 reduction. And it says the tax assessment increased by $112,000 from 23 to 24. There were no significant upgrades or improvements to the property that would constitute this kind of increase.
Well, that was your reevaluation.
Other than we did a reevaluation, which,
You know, the hard thing with a reevaluation is some people are gonna get beat up bad and some people are gonna probably do okay.
and this is the age-old thing, each one of these abatements, when you look at the property and you ask yourself the question, if I call Jamie Gilbert, what's she gonna put on this for price?
Well, in the situation, in the meeting with the citizen that Josh from Hamlin's and I had this morning, that was the question he put to this individual, what would you pay for that property if you had to buy it today?
Or what would you take if somebody walked in with a pocket full
And
of cash?
that was exactly what he said.
And that does play into it, I mean, the market this year is different than last year and it's different than 5 years ago.
My advice would be just what Mike said. Send this to Josh at Hamlin's and have him.
Let him explain
have
to
him-
them.
Right, and if there is, if he feels there, we're beyond the 180-day thing, which, again, we go back to the precedents. If at 190 days we abate, and the rules are 180 days, then at 200 days, we're gonna have 10 more abatements. You know, the rules are the rules,
Right.
but each one of these will be an issue next year, so we might as well hit it head on and deal with it. I make a motion, we turn those two over to Josh and have him advise us.
Second. They did some good work.
We did?
Agreed for.
Yeah.
Okay, next item, item G, is old municipal building reserve account.
Okay. The other, well, one of the things, and Josh and I have talked about this a lot. One of the things Michelle and I did was and you all know we were concerned with making sure we had enough money in the bank to get us through to pay all our bills to July 31st. So we sat down and we went through it, and Michelle and I went through this kind of line by line, mostly Michelle, to be honest, because some of it I was just plain confused on, but when we got down to the bottom line, we were in the same place. And we need to be able to pay our bills until July 31st. Our average monthly expenses are $123,877.63. This is all in a report you have there in front of you and online and on your.
On my computer that I haven't turned on.
Right. From January 1 till July 31st, that's a total of $867,143.40. The auditors recommend we always keep 3 additional months of expense funds on hand for emergencies. So that calculates to $371,632.89. We add that to our 7 months of known expenses, we have a total of $1,238,776.29 is what we need to pay our bills from January 1 and have a safe reserve until July 31. Then we go to our sweep account and our checking account. Our checking account is always $70,000 because the sweep account, reimburses that. So what we currently have for a balance is $1,661,100 or $240.68. So we have $422,464.39 that we don't have to have dedicated to paying our bills and our reserve. Article 35 said up to $440,000.
Right.
Now, I don't wanna put that whole 422,000, well, we can't put the whole 422,000, because 39,000 of that and change is LRAP money that we have to spend on a capital road project. But my thought is, and this was the advice of the auditors a couple months ago, remember we had this discussion here at this meeting, that we move 300,000 of that into a reserve account before the end of the fiscal year for the town hall, and that is a recommendation. That is up to you. Just wanted you guys to have the information and be able to make, but we thought we should make the decision on that tonight, where we have 2 weeks to make this happen.
So, just for clarity's sake, once we go past the end of the year, if we move 300,000 to a capital reserve account for the old town hall, the 440's off the table at the end of the year, and then we would have to go back to the people for anything other than what we've put into capital reserve.
That is my understanding from my understanding of the law and speaking with the auditors. Yes.
That's my interpretation, is whatever we move to capital reserve is in capital reserve.
The downside to moving something to capital reserve is the article said raise up to $440,000.
Right.
Once you commit that, whatever fund, whatever number you choose, and I'm just making a recommendation. You guys can change that recommendation, do not ignore that recommendation, do whatever. But once that money is put into capital reserve, it then can only be used for that specific project.
So the ups and downs to it is, the downside to it is, if we move 300 and we get into the project and we need 350, we go to the people for the 50.
Yes. In which you're gonna need more, and I mean, this is gonna be something.
We're gonna go into another year, another budget cycle and the whole thing.
And again, I'm still pursuing grants, I'm still looking at everything.
Yep.
I've got a list of people that I'm gonna be contacting tomorrow and Friday to set up meetings, you know, to see what I can beg, borrow, and whatever from the federal government and the subsidiaries for this.
And the downside to moving more than 300 is if we end up in a situation where, that money's needed elsewhere.
Well,
It's locked into that capital
and
reserve.
part of this is the anticipation that the townspeople are gonna give us so much money for roads at the annual March town meeting.
Right.
But we won't have what money they give us, what money they allocate us until we start collecting taxes in July.
That's correct.
But we have a short season to work on roads in the state of Maine.
That's right.
So, we can be using, my hope is that, you know, that when we get our budget approved for road work, that with this 122,000, part of which is the state local road assistance program money anyway, that we can be using that money starting April, May, to start doing work on the roads. And one of the things we have to be able to do is we have to be able to pay for spring grading in, you know, I'm guessing May is probably when we're gonna try to get that done. Basically whenever the frost comes out of the road.
In the proportion.
And the auditor's recommendation of our books was to move 300,000 to capital.
No, the auditors recommended we move whatever money that we didn't. At the time, the auditors recommended we move that money. I don't think they had looked completely at the bottom line either. The townspeople, there were two articles in your May town meeting. That Article 35, which was the citizen petition for
Right.
440,000, and it was Article 26, is that correct? That was the 200,000 for roads that we looked at? The money was authorized by the taxpayers, but when the mill rate was set and all the taxes were collected, there was not enough money to fund both of those projects.
Right.
And run the town.
Right.
So that's where we have, and if you go back to the articles, there raise up to $200,000 for roads, raise up to 440,000
Right.
for it. Now, the auditors said, well, yeah, move that 440,000, I don't think they had completely looked at the bottom line, or maybe they were looking at a different fiscal year or something, but we have to have money to be able to pay our bills till July 31st in that sweep account. And if we move 440,000, we'd be deep into our reserve, we'd be in problems on doing road work in the spring. The $300,000 is my recommendation. I feel that meets what the townspeople asked for when they said up to 440,000. That is what we can afford to fund out of the taxes we collected from them. I don't feel we can afford to go higher. You gentlemen may decide, it's well within your rights to decide to go higher, but it's also in your rights to say, you know, Brian's still cutting it a little close here, maybe we ought to go a little lower. I just thought we ought to have this discussion and move some of this money, because I felt that kind of is consistent with the will of the people.
Right. If we don't move any money, number one, it's not the will of the people, and number two, we're into this project, we could still fund the project, because we have an article until the end of the year.
But
when
until
we
the
go to-
end of the fiscal year, which is in 13 days.
That's correct. So once we get into January, where do we stand if we don't move money to capital reserve? We go back to the people to pay the bills on this as they come in, correct?
That would be my understanding, yes.
We've gotta move some in
We've
case
gotta-
we have, we find somebody to do the roof. I
Or
mean,
if we get a grant and we've gotta pay 25% or something.
And again, I'm looking for grants, for federal money, for whatever I can get, some of which is gonna require a match. I mean, I've been spending, you know, an hour or two a day at least on this for the last several weeks. So,
Suggest using the SAM.gov
Yeah.
system's really user friendly.
Yeah, thanks, man.
No problem.
That's helpful, buddy. And we're still working on, and, you know, probably it's a little bit of an aside here, but Kelsey has been busting her tail, working, making calls, doing everything she possibly can. Has truly gone above and beyond for us to try to get that mess straightened out with the federal government.
Yeah,
So,
she's working almost all day long just on the SAM.gov.
It's not going anywhere, but I'm trying.
Yeah, it's very frustrating for her.
Sometimes that's all that matters.
Well, and the other thing, we had also discussed a little bit last year about carry forwards. So I need to do a little research on the carry forwards. If you need to designate that prior to our books closing, to be able to do that. I know we can do it when we're creating the warrant for the next year, but we're talking next year, not this year.
Right.
So I need to, that's a little bit of a gray area for me. I'm not sure how, if we can do that now.
and I'd rather
The
play
30th
it,
meeting might be a little bit longer,
Shouldn't be.
please.
I'm gonna try to get,
No,
I'm gonna
no,
try
I-
to get an answer.
like I said, for this particular piece
Right.
of things, I think you should act on that tonight, one way or the other. I really do,
Yep.
because that gives us enough time to get it taken care of, and gray areas make me nervous.
You are not alone.
So the other thought is that it was the will of the people to put 200,000 into the roads.
That's true, so you can,
Right.
And,
It's great to have the will, but you don't have the finances.
right, but I mean, if we
But
roll
what-
over money for the building, should we be rolling over something for the roads? Should we be setting it aside because we've already voted on it?
I don't-
My personal thought is,
So in your
we should do something for both.
right,
It's just.
in your
how much.
calculations, you would come up with this $300,000 number.
I had
How
come
is
up,
that, how does that number
I had
coincide
come
with
up
the
with
road?
422,464.39.
Right. I can see
That is not what we need for, in the sweep account to pay our bills till July 31st with the 3-month reserve that the auditors recommend in case there's something, some big expense that, you know, kicks us in the backside.
Now,
The 422,000 is left beyond that. I came up with the 300,000 because I was basically thinking the same as you, keep that 122,000, which 39,000 was part of, for the roads. But what my thought was, is the people we would be putting our road budget before the people before we would start doing any road work.
Right, but if we had money that we approved last year, percent of the meeting, and, you know,
I see your point. I'm just,
I do too, I mean,
and it would be really good to have a jump right out of the gate with something, I mean, after the meeting with the road committee the other night, there's a few projects that they'd like to see that should
Right.
really get going, you know.
right, I'd like to start working on roads just as soon as the, you know, Mother Nature permits us to in the spring.
I mean, I guess my initial thought is 225 and 75. That still gives us that $122,000 swing in case we had something major
Well,
come up with, you know.
You've got your 3-month reserve.
Right.
For something major coming up. And you've got 39,000 of that 422 there is actually already LRAP money for 2024 that's dedicated to the roads that we can use on roads and nothing else
Right.
legally. So, you probably could even go with a 275 for the building and 75 for the roads would be okay. I feel we could do that.
see guys?
Thank you guys.
Because your 75 for the roads would then on top of that have this other 39, so you'd have you'd actually be closer to 120,000.
And basically what we're doing is we're earmarking out of this year's budget to put into the roads next year. And we're earmarking out of this year's budget to put into the building next year.
Yes.
And we've got,
Based on what the taxpayers have already authorized and decided they wanted for this year, but did not get spent this year.
right,
So, by that, you know, my anticipation is that we could get to our March, whatever the date is, the end of March, town meeting, and people would say, well, what happened to the 440,000 we appropriated for the building last year? What happened to the 200,000 we appropriated for roads last year? And those are legitimate questions
Right.
that we need to be able to answer truthfully.
I hear them all the time from past, you know,
I
where'd
do.
that road money go, where'd this go, where'd that go? Well, never
Right.
got rolled over, you know. But I do hate to deplete, the one good thing that the last board did for us was give us quite a reserve.
mm-hmm,
You know, it stinks to chew that up too, you know.
but as I can see it, some of that money wasn't really there. Here's an example.
Right.
The monument money, that was in the tally, but it wasn't where it was supposed, that money was not there.
Right.
And that's where some of this gray area comes with, you know, the 440 and the 200. We have this big number, but when we actually break out the things that should have been somewhere else, the money's not there.
Right.
Which is one of the key reasons that I asked Michelle to help me go through this, and we went through it in the detail we did earlier this week, was on your suggestion, we need to make sure we've got enough money to get to the end of the year.
Yeah.
You had me panicked about that, to be quite honest.
It was scaring me, and honestly, some of these numbers, I still don't know. Like this property tax, 1.6 million, whatever the number is.
That's your commitment, that was your commitment.
Right, but I mean, it shows here that we got it, but not everybody's paid.
No.
So that's not the real number.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's what bothers me, that's why I get scared, because this, to me, this number here, this 2 million at the bottom, total revenue, is probably more like 1.9.
But the money
And the
we're-
total of the expenses is like 2.4, that don't make sense.
Right.
But the money we're operating off, the money I used for these calculations were our expenses that we know for a fact that we're gonna
Right.
have.
Yep.
Versus the money that is in the sweep account and the checking account, and we get that statement from what is in the bank.
Perfect.
So we know we have that money. Yes, there are expenses that may not be, there is work that Michelle and Kelsey and I and the auditors and everything are gonna have to do to get everything to balance out. But this is money we know for a fact it is in our account.
Okay.
And money that we know that we need to spend.
Yep.
And the 422,000 is the balance outside of that. Now, you may have a little more, you may have a little less, but you've also got that 3-month reserve on expenses in there, that 300, and
Now, is the school all paid up for this year?
the school is part of this.
The school is part of that
I
budget.
know, but I'm saying,
But no,
we
I've
we
got-
looked at what was in there.
I've got one more payment.
It's in that stack
Okay,
right there.
so did it come out of your figures? Cause that's
And it's
$100,000
not from
figure.
out of your figures, because we did from
We
January to
did from January
July.
1.
Yeah,
Right,
So that's 80,000, so we may be off a little, you know.
yeah,
88,000, yep.
Yeah, I had thought that was,
Yeah, no, I only went from January to July.
yeah.
but I had thought we had made that last school
So then
payment.
you
Yeah,
gotta
no,
Which
they
is,
take
don't-
it's
that
all
out,
right,
that's on
it's
that
all right, it's just a big
warrant.
one. That's why I asked about that one, cause that one will change a decimal point.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
your other contractors have been paid. The school's the only one that hasn't been paid by the end of the year.
Okay. Yep. So realistically, we shouldn't go over 350 if we set aside for the building and roads, or either one, I mean, if we only set aside for one, we shouldn't go over 350.
Probably, had with not knowing with now knowing that we haven't made that final school payment, we probably have now to go over 320.
the other side of it is, we also haven't collected all the taxes due, right?
Right, but so if you're just figuring off the way he figured it,
Right.
as far as what's in the account, we're
Right,
good.
real money.
But yes, I would like to know what
This is.
these.
I'd like to know that number right there that you brought up.
Yeah,
This is what we're supposed to collect and how much did we collect?
And that number we'll get to by, at some point here,
Right.
you know, but.
But it's a,
My concern was that my concern was that I wanted to make sure we could pay the bills through till we started
That's
collecting taxes.
and then from there, solidify some of the people's will from the
Right.
previous town meeting. So, to the old town hall, engineering expense, what have we got for known expense coming right up between now and town
Well, the
meeting?
interesting thing was the engineering expense was its own line in the budget, completely separate of the $440,000.
They budgeted that in before.
So,
After the vote. they-
I don't believe we're over on that.
No, I think we have 12,000 left.
Yeah, 'cause what was
So-
that number, was it 40,000?
28 and change, I believe, wasn't it?
25 or 28,000.
but I mean, if that bill isn't gonna come till next year.
At the pace that Steve Gavone's moving,
We'll
we
be talking
might
about this
not
next
see
December.
that till next decade.
Right. But that could be another number we have to take out of that for 22. I guess is what I'm
Yes,
getting at.
but if we have money set aside into that reserve account, we can then use money from that reserve account to pay for that.
But my thing is we, even if you don't talk about here, we were just talking about the checking account.
Oh, yeah, I see
You know
what
what I
you're saying,
mean?
yes.
You're right.
Right,
But, yeah.
But my thing being that if we've dedicated 200, 300, whatever number you choose to the capital reserve for the old building, and a engineering payment or any cost for the old building comes up,
We don't take
it
the
can
people.
then be taken out of that $300,000 reserve account to pay for.
and if we
The
don't
thing
do
we can-
anything, we gotta go back to the people for everything we do on that building.
Right.
Exactly.
Oh, I mean, we have to, it's our duty, I think, to set something
Oh, I do too.
aside. Now, that had its own line item, so say that bill comes due in March and we pay it. Now, when we get our budget approved, can we rotate numbers to make it look like it came out of the budget line again, come July? So it didn't come out of the reserve?
You can reimburse the reserve.
I was
That's
gonna
what
say,
you're
I think I
asking.
understand
Right.
what you're asking, but Michelle probably is better at this.
Where it's got its own item, it would be nice to see it come from there, but at the beginning of the year, it's not going to be able to come from there, it's gonna have to come from that reserve.
Right. Or, well, basically, what's gonna happen to you is all from the January 1st until you get to town meeting, you're gonna run those accounts negative. And then when you get approval in March from the people,
Okay.
and I populate all those votes, those will all fill back in and those negatives will be deducted from the budget that was approved.
But this was one of the
Without
things that was the
touching the
hardest
reserves.
thing, one of the hardest things for me to get my head around is that our chart of accounts, our general ledger, our journal, whatever term you wanna use for it, the money that is in there, even if we run it negative, that is a bookkeeping trick, for
Right.
lack of a better term. We still have to have money in that sweep account and in that checking account, real money to pay all our bills.
Right.
Okay.
And that was what I looked at specifically, Michelle helped me, and we looked at it together specifically. And again, Michelle did more of the work than I did, to be honest, but she understands it better too.
So if it came in March, we would just put that line item into the negative?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, and then when you're approved, we'll populate it back and your total, instead of 50,000, is gonna be 27,000, whatever the bill was.
Yep.
So there'll be a balance.
I just hate to see it come out of the, whatever we set aside when it already has a, you know.
Right,
A line item in the
Right.
budget.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we can do when we get to that point, if we get bills, I mean, ultimately you approve every bill. If we've got bills that we're concerned about what account we're going for, whether reserve
Yeah.
or a line item, we bring that
Right.
on the agenda to this committee and you make a decision about that at the time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because I think that would require anyway, the board to say, this bill needs to come from the reserve.
Actually, I believe Michelle's correct. I don't think just Michelle or I could write a check out of the reserve account without you specifically authorizing us as the board to do so.
I mean, you look at all the bills, but I think in this situation where it's the reserve, it changes the dynamics
Right.
to it a little bit. You have to tell us what to put in, you have to tell us what to take out, basically.
Mike, what are you thinking? You're
Just
deep
all these
dog
numbers
there.
running around here, so just.
Well, and something else that, as I'm sitting here and we're discussing this, we also have the auditors doing our checkbook right now. They're trying to balance it and get it all cleaned up for me to start the new year with. There are entries from the state of Maine that aren't in this chart for you. From our bank statements, when the ACH checks, which is what the deposits are from the state, not all of that money's in here yet. So those entries haven't been made.
So we may look a little better.
But my thing was when I walk in here tonight, I wanna make sure you have the worst case, not a rainbow
Yep.
Right,
projection.
right.
The bottom line, the best, in the worst case scenario.
Which is what we'd like to have.
So, the bottom line is, there's two articles in here that require us to create a capital reserve account for.
That, I've never heard of a capital reserve account for roads, but there's no reason why we can't have one that I can think of. And I'm sure somebody out there has such a thing, I just have never run across it.
If it's an article that's approved and it requires money, I mean, capital reserve, that money's locked down for that purpose, period.
Right.
Which is basically what an article, that's the will of the people,
I
is to lock
agree,
that
I
money
agree.
down.
I agree with you. So herein lies the problem is, or the opportunity, the problem, however you wanna look at it. We've got that, and let's, when we take the last school payment out of that, and, the LRAP money out of that, we're probably looking at closer to 300,000 that we have to divide between those two. And let's say 275 to be safe. As opposed to the whole 422, because I didn't realize, I made a mistake and did not realize we still owe the school $89,000.
Right.
And the LRAP, which is gonna go to roads anyway, but that's 39,000 that is in that 422.
And the mystery number in my head is the projected property tax is $1.6 million, basically. We don't have a real number on how much is here and how much is coming.
I can get that for you.
That would be wicked good information, but you can't bank on something that's not here too.
Well,
Right,
we
but I
should
can't
really have
tell
it
you
for
what
every
we've-
one of these line items, because every one of them, if you look at them.
I know.
Match exactly the line beside them.
And that's because when this budget was designed, usually what will happen is we'll estimate what you're gonna take in for revenue. And so that line is missing, that budgeting line's not here. So when the budgets were being put together, that was never given to me to figure out. So that's why those figures all are negative and they're all showing
Right.
no difference. I'm hoping that when I contact Brenda tomorrow, that she'll be able to help me with that. So we should get some figures in there.
So, we'd really be pushing the envelope if we put this into the December 30th meeting to make this decision.
We'd be exceeding it,
Yeah.
we'd be outside it.
Yeah. As far as the money for the property taxes that we've taken in, I can email you or text you. I'll figure that out and get that figure out to you. I know that you don't have that much left to collect.
Right. So, the building project next door, once we get to the 1st of January, if we don't move it to capital reserve, we're going to the people for everything we do.
Yes.
Is there anything other than us saying we're moving it to capital reserve that you guys actually have to do with the money?
I have to create
Yeah.
I have to create an account, but that's all I have to do.
You just relabel it.
Just in our system, it's not at the bank that you created, account.
Nope.
Okay.
No, because you're not making a savings account. If you were actually going to say, I want to pull $200,000 out of our sweep and we want to go over to the bank and make a old municipal building savings account or capital reserve, whatever you want to call it, and take it out of our cash flow, then yes, that would be different.
Right.
The way you're gonna do it now would be just simply, it's gonna sit there in our pot, but I'm gonna label it, and we can't spend that money, period, until you guys give us
And we
permission.
have nothing in a capital reserve account now
That's right.
that's holding from our bank account.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Now, the roads themselves have a line item in the budget, and to spend money on roads, we don't necessarily have to go back to the people like you would on the building next door, correct?
Well, yes and no. If we,
I'm just
We-
trying to understand it, that's all.
if we have to do emergency road construction or something like that, you know, we probably would be fine doing it because it's an emergency. But the road construction we do as of starting next year, other than grading, which is expensive, and even that needs to be approved by the people. We have to on March 20, whatever it is,
Last Saturday of
28th, I
March.
think, last Saturday of March, we have to have a number that you agree on, the budget committee agrees on, well, technically you don't have to agree on it. But there has to be a number in a warrant article that says what we can spend and how we can spend it on roads. Once that passes, we can use the money,
The
but.
the problem is what you're talking about is right here, in the last town meeting, that's the money we're talking about.
And the other issue to think about is that I've looked at this enough to know that we have a budget issue.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have much of a road budget in this one. If we go up on our road budget, we have a fire department that could really use some more money.
Mm-hmm.
None of these line items really can go down.
Right.
If we can keep our road budget down by rolling over some money now,
Mm-hmm.
we might not have to raise taxes quite so much.
Won't have to play with the mill rate.
Right.
And
The
I-
chance of that happening, from what I'm looking at right now, in my eyes is slim to none, but
I think-
I hope that it doesn't change, I really do, I hope we
I
do
think
something, but.
I think the reality is we're probably gonna have to go up a little on the mill rate on the town side, and we're gonna be stuck going up on the school side with whatever they hand us.
Whatever they hand us. Yeah.
But the key,
There's no negotiating that.
not for us,
Don't vote for it.
yeah,
Townspeople need to go and say, I don't agree with that,
Right.
to their meeting.
And you need to twist your school board members' ears right off.
I mean, it was only 3 towns in the whole district that voted for it. Just happened to be the 3 largest towns, so.
Right.
You punching some more numbers there?
yeah, basically. When I take out that last school payment, and this is a ballpark, cause I didn't have the exact figure, and the same with the LRAP, that gives us about 295,000 rather than the 422 I said. So, but the 39,000 is roads anyway, that's that state,
Right.
local road assistance money.
Brian, you
Yeah,
gotta take that warrant and how much all that is and subtract it from your big number, not just the school, cause that's a whole stack of bills that's not taken out of that amount.
okay. But
Right,
this, but
because-
this,
I only figured from January to July.
So that stack is still not out of
And-
that amount.
This has those bills out of it, but your figure doesn't.
do we remember roughly what that figure
It's
is?
on
It's-
that paper.
Yep, it's right on the top of the warrant.
Cause I know it's more than the.
Is that included the school payment?
No. So this is 125,000 total for this warrant.
That has the school one in.
This does have the school in it?
I was gonna say they would have to have.
Okay,
this
so,
be that high.
oh, okay, I didn't realize you put the school in it. So that, take that out of your figure. And
That'll
then
give-
that will
That
bring,
should give you a real number.
You want a calculator?
I got one, I just need to reach in
Just
my,
sitting on it.
I just need to reach in my pocket.
So the other question I have, Brian, what do you anticipate,
yeah, I didn't realize.
with the
you
grants
put
that
the
you're
school
writing
already.
as far
And
as
that's fine.
match
That's-
funds?
Yeah, you told me to.
Yeah, that's,
Uh,
but that would be cleaner for him if he
you know,
doesn't have
honestly,
that.
I can't give a real solid number on that. Less than 100,000?
Yeah.
It's a-
That's kinda what I had in the back of my head, you know,
Okay.
if we end up with,
Yeah, then it's-
applying for this-
Because we only did
this
two.
question 3 money,
Right, sorry.
and they
So that's
say,
fine. So I'm glad you caught that.
we'll give you $1 million, and you got 25% match.
and we saw-
We can always take that to the people and let them approve it, but
Big difference.
Right.
there's enough money to
Yeah,
do it.
Absolutely.
This would've been easier. Read
Yeah,
that
glasses.
glasses. I mean, I left my glasses in the truck.
The bottom one here?
Yeah, 145.
140, yeah, 145, 146, 52. That's a big number.
Yep, see. Yeah, that reached our budget right there. So that's right.
I
So
gotta go
that's
back to
done.
that again, that didn't
Perfect.
sound right.
Now we can't see the buttons on the calculator.
Yeah, there we go. That was 145, 146.
Yeah, 52. Let me write it down in the letters.
No, that gives us 277, 317.87, rather than 422.
The longer we talk, the number keeps getting smaller.
I know,
Well,
That's,
I'm glad we're doing it right now and not,
right, this is the time
not
to do
in
it.
June saying, oh crap.
But that, luckily, yes, but that will get you to January. So
Right.
now his figures, if he takes that out, that will get him where he needs to be. Uh-oh.
And I mean, there is gonna be some vehicle excise tax come in, and I mean, it's not gonna be a lot of money, but there'll be a little bit
No,
coming.
and you should be getting some more state money too.
But what, you know,
Yeah, can you do that sooner rather than later?
you take these things like the $2,000 for Trio, I mean, those things add up
It
quickly.
does add up. And you mentioned, which I didn't give a thought about, but you just mentioned the monument lot. Monument lot is in reserve already.
Mhm.
So, and we don't have a definite figure from the auditors on that figure. I figured it roughly myself as 31,000
Right,
compared to what was in the book, which was 39 something.
but that's a reality too.
It is.
So the decision we've gotta make tonight is how much
And
money,
you gotta remember, some of this can be covered by that 3 months of expenses you put into reserve.
right,
Like an unexpected, like, oh crap, we missed $11,000 on the monument account. Can come out of that reserve
Right.
reserve money. That's not untouchable money. But basically, what you have without the LRAP money is you have $238,000. The LRAP money is $39,000 as an sweep account that we have to spend on roads. So that is dedicated road money. Beyond that, you have $238,000 with all the bills paid between now and the end of July.
And the old building account, we need to make some sort of a capital reserve for it.
Yes.
Before we get out the end of the year. Do we need to do the same thing for the roads where there was an article, or we don't?
We don't have to, but it might not be a bad idea.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around, because if we did an amount of money for capital reserve for the old building, the rest of that money it's gonna go up and down, money coming in, money going out.
Right. If you did even if you went as far as just 175,000 into a capital reserve account for that building, that still gives you, along with the road money, along with the LRAP money, more than enough money in a reserve account we could then go,
I don't think we should go below 200 for the building.
I'm right there with you, Josh.
well, I tend to agree. If you go with 200,000, then we could,
230 for the roads.
And the
Yes.
road, and with the roads, we really don't have to go to the people to spend. That doesn't,
No, but I'm thinking about the budget issues we're gonna have for next year.
I am too.
If we can get a little bit more push that way,
Right.
I think we're gonna be better off in the long run.
I agree.
if you go with 200,000 for the roads, or 200,000 for the building, you know, you could still do 30,000 for the roads, and
Plus the LRAP money and the.
plus the LRAP money, you're gonna have,
That's gonna be a $60,000 or $70,000
we're gonna have
boost.
about 70,000 to start with before we even ask the people for more money to spend on roads in the
Right.
spring.
Has the road stuff been prioritized or just throwing together what we need to do next year?
Yes.
They gave us a priority list. Ours may differ a little bit in spots, but
Their list was pretty
So it's
solid.
not just a list, it's something with some priorities to it.
right, yep.
You know, for example, we gotta do something with the line road. That section from Kenny Corner down to, and we wanna make sure the pavement extends beyond Josh's driveway, whatever we do.
Well, never grew me.
Calling the county sheriff.
So no,
Might even take state troopers to get me out, I don't know.
from the Kenny Corner down to the starboard siding road, we really need to do something there. That needs to be paved.
Yeah. Maple Street.
Maple Street needs to be.
Really Street needs it bad.
Church Street needs it, but I think that could wait another year.
And we really need to do something about the shoulders on East Sangerville, because that road is still in good shape, but we're starting to lose it in a few spots, and
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have some work to do on East Side.
I never understood that, and
And
one
we've
day
got-
Butch pointed that all out to me, and then I went out and looked at it again, and I see what he's saying, I understand.
yeah, we took a $50,000 or $60,000 hit on that, on a paver's mistake.
Yep.
Yep.
That was your folks from East Newport.
Yep.
All right, so we've had discussion on this old building, let's get down to making a decision on it. What I'm hearing from the discussion, we're all circling in on moving $200,000 to the capital reserve account for the building.
I'd love it to be more, but I think that's a good number.
I agree.
I think we owe it to the people to give a little bit to both, and
I do
I
too.
do think that warrants more because there's not a line item for it.
Right,
Yeah.
and there is for the roads.
Right.
That's where I was going with that,
Yeah.
not trying to
No, I
deprioritize the
know.
roads in any way,
Right.
just this. When we step over that line after January 1st, everything we do, we go put our hand out to the people.
Right.
And every time you do that, well, we appropriated 440,000, what happened?
What happened, where'd it go? Right.
Even
And-
though that it really wasn't in fact truly there,
Right.
people aren't gonna understand that, they're gonna say, but we voted that.
Right, in this calendar year, we haven't come anywhere near $200,000 of that money, and that money was allocated for this calendar year.
Right.
We've not made that much progress. Well, before we make a motion, we're still in discussion mode here. What are your thoughts? Do you think 200 is the right number? And do you think, Brian, that as you,
Given after the recalculations, because like I said, I should have asked Michelle to go from right now till July 31st, and I asked her to go January 1. So that was clearly my mistake, but with that, with the adjustment to the figures I had in my report, based on that, I feel that 200,000 is a better number than 300,000.
I do too.
And I think that's the right number. And then I think we still put some money aside for roads. Like 30,000 would be my recommendation.
Motor vehicle excise, that's the top line, right?
Yes. That's how much you've taken in this year in excise.
Do you, is how much we've taken in, or that's how much we projected to take in?
That's how much we've taken in.
Okay. And that normally comes,
That's
varies throughout the year
all
pretty.
through the year, yep.
That's already in your sweep account.
This is,
Right,
this- yeah.
well,
You're looking for money,
I am, yeah, I am.
which is
because-
fair.
Because I really, in my mind, I would really love that building to be at 250, but I don't feel that it's fair to the people that we don't put something into the roads, and if we,
As Jeff said
there's
at
a
the
chance, pretty good chance we're probably gonna get 150 in motor vehicle excise tax in the first
In a
half
half
of
a
the
year, right.
So do we,
You can dip into those 3 months reserve, that's an auditor recommendation. That's
Right.
not a carved in stone.
The down to this whole thing next door is this. That, once we deplete what we move to capital reserve, we're going back with the handout, period.
Yes.
That's how it is, and with that, you're gonna explain what you've done, what you've spent, and why we didn't. And the reason we didn't is the money doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So, we need to take what we do have for money, and we need to allocate it the best we can.
where did you say we were at?
With the LRAP money in the sweep account and checking account, we're at 277 and change. Like 277, 464, 39. And the LRAP is about 39,000, so that actually, so the actual number, when you take the LRAP out of there is gonna be about 238.
I mean, knowing that I mean, it ain't a guarantee, but it's pretty well guaranteed that we're gonna get something in vehicle excise tax. I'm kind of at 250 and 30. That's, just because if we do happen, if he comes across the grant, like you said, for $1 million and we gotta cover 25%, I really don't wanna, that 250 number is a number that sticks in my mind, and that's,
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys wanna push it that close, but I think
Well,
I'm
like I
willing to
said,
push it that close.
if we make a mistake by pushing it that close, we have 371,632.89.
Right.
That we can utilize to still pay the bills.
Yep.
That reserve, those 3 months reserve is a recommendation for emergencies. And if we bet on the fact that we're gonna get this vehicle excise tax, which we most likely will get, it's not really that much of a bet. But if our projection is off by $30,000 or $40,000, we still have money in that sweep account to pay our bills. It just comes out of a reserve that really is kind of a fictional number anyway.
Right.
Right. As we're learning.
Yeah.
And I'm learning this along with you.
Right.
I never learned this to the detail that I'm learning now when I was doing budget advisory and selectmen in Dover.
Right.
I'm gonna, what do you think, Michelle?
I think I like the idea of you putting more than the 200 in, just because the people voted for full 40. You know, we haven't really met all the goals, but I think it's doable.
I agree.
I think what you're doing is doable.
I'm comfortable with 250. Given the recalculations, I would not be comfortable with the 300,000 that I suggested.
I'd be
when we
very
started
nervous
this
with that.
conversation.
Well, and like Brian said, you do have that cushion of the 3-month reserve. And money's gonna be flowing in and out, back and forth. But on top of that, you're also gonna have money coming in from the state of Maine, those deposits. State revenue sharing is gonna be coming in. That's a monthly thing that comes in. That's usually around 18,000, roughly, give or take. So you're gonna have some monthly stuff that's gonna be coming in from the state that's gonna keep that flow going, so.
And again, I figured this deliberately low, deliberately conservative. So if any of us made a mistake in this,
Right.
there would still be money somewhere to cover that mistake.
And the reality is, in the beginning of the year, when we, as a town, when we voted for the $440,000, we had high hopes of making a lot of progress, which we've not made a lot of progress. But in defense of this group of people, we spent 4 or 5 months this summer just trying to fill the select board and trying to get through the taxes. And I mean, we had fires going everywhere, and the progress over here was put on hold.
But people understand that too, Jeff.
And I think that using a lower capital reserve number and taking money from this year that they allocated and putting it in capital reserve, I think it's the right thing to do, and it's either 2 or 250 in my mind. If we can do the 250, and if we're looking at grants for that, that would give us up to $1 million and a 25% match. It makes for good round numbers all the way.
Which, that sounds good, but I ain't that good. But we'll do our best.
Hey, what was the word you used earlier?
Verbose or abusively.
So your grant writing isn't thoroughly verbose?
No, my grant writing is very verbose. It's just learning to speak bureaucratese and get everything they want in there. Plus, we're competing. All
Right.
these grants, we're competing against others.
Others, yeah.
And, some you're gonna get, some you're not.
Yep.
Hey, Matt?
That's right. I've learned all too well.
So let's bring a motion to the floor on what to do with this so we can move on.
I make a motion, we move 250 for the building and we move 30 for the roads.
Based on the articles in the town report.
Correct.
I second that motion. It's a vote. Okay,
I mean, I think the town people would be happy with that. No,
I
if
think,
they know every
I think
aspect
this
of
was
it.
something we needed to accomplish
Yep.
tonight.
yep, that was the most important thing on this list.
Well, the people are seeing, everyone is trying really hard to do the right thing. So, even if it's just a little bit, in our eyes, it means that we're trying to do something for them.
And you gotta look at, this is the will of the people, and we're gonna be going back to the people in 3 months, 4 months, roughly. And when you go back to them and say, this, you wanted us to spend up to $440,000. This is what we did. I feel good with this, I think we made a good decision.
I think so. And one thing before we go further into this, I wanna make sure that we recognize the fire department and all the work that they did for us. Matt had a crew come and they brought all the records from the basement up, and
Oh,
that was
really? I
not a
didn't know that.
small task. And then the room that we found upstairs, they brought down the records from up there and brought them down so Kelsey and I can work with them. So, you know, we wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
Did you know about that stash room up there?
I didn't, not until they asked me to cut a lock off, find out if there was
Which
anything
lock
in it.
that locks off?
And then I looked in and they said, I don't think you're gonna wanna see what's
Speaking of which, in recognizing the fire department, I think we need to consider recognizing them in a more substantial form, which is, I would like permission to put on the January agenda, to make a personnel policy change, to go back to paying the fire department minimum wage for their firefighting hours and their training hours.
That's a decision
That's
made by
a
the
decision-
board, or is that a decision by the
That is a
people?
decision made by the three of you.
They did.
So last year, the old board rewrote the personnel policy stating that we would now receive stipends based off the $10 a call. Before that, it was when the tone goes off, you're paid minimum wage until you're back in the station for each call. And that's the way it had been for as long as I've ever known.
I would amend that to be back till you're back in the station and fully in service.
Well, yeah, that's
There's
basically.
a lot of work to be done.
So that's
We both
basically
know
what I
when you
mean.
get back after a
But
structure fire.
what it is the tone time goes on the sheet, and when we're all done heading home goes on the sheet. In that time frame, everybody got paid minimum wage while they're there.
Does that comes out of your budget?
Yeah, that comes out of the payroll budget, it's budgeted in. So like last year, they told me that they were gonna do this, so I had to budget, instead of the close to 30,000 for payroll for the year, it was 15 to account for that change. So it's gonna be a considerable difference.
And if we change it January 1, we're talking that it may be $5,000 that we haven't budgeted for that can come out of that reserve money. That 3 months reserve.
So what we'll need to do then is see that on the January 8th meeting on
And
the
discuss
agenda, as a new business item discussion.
Yeah. And that was my
So this is
suggestion.
basically just a nod to,
This is just,
pull it
I don't
together.
want somebody to say, why are we doing this now?
We basically, like myself anyway, I just need to know before we go into budget meetings if we're going to change it, because that's gonna change what we ask for payroll on my end.
right?
And I have gotten, Jolene dropped off the last of their timesheets at the house today, so I will have to figure, this stretch is 6 months that Jolene's been working up for me. So I'll have that probably sometime tomorrow to know what that payroll was.
Which is
Obviously,
probably,
they're gonna go negative.
Well, the thing with that though is, I don't know if she gives you the same thing that she gives me,
I get a lot more than that.
because
I get that plus.
right now, if you go by these numbers, this is basically at minimum wage, like it was in the past.
Yep.
And if you add this all up together for 6 months, it's like 12 or 13,000. Well, according to the personnel policy right now, we get paid $10 per call. So you shouldn't be paying us what these are saying.
Exactly.
So I don't know if you have to get different numbers from her to show, because these are showing hours, not call numbers.
Right.
So if you need that, I can break that all down for you, because.
well, I think
we
where
can't pay
we're
them.
going is we're gonna be going back to this as of January 1.
Right, but this here is
Right.
from June to December.
Right.
So we still have to pay off the old, what they did
Right.
last year. for this, so.
But I think we need to, we can afford that correction on this budget. We're not talking, he can burn down half the buildings in town and he's not gonna run us up 50,000 in 3 months that we're not budgeted. So we can afford to, and again, I know we probably shouldn't be discussing it till we have it on an official
Right.
agenda item. But
But I think this is
the
just,
right
this is
thing
just
to do.
this is just a heads up to have everything, have an agenda item for January 8th meeting and have all our ducks in a row so that we'll be able to make that decision.
And probably what we'd like to have, Matt, is a projected cost of January, February, March of what you think that we will have based on history.
To cover that timeframe.
Yes,
At the-
if we have that, if you can get that to Michelle or I a day or two
That's
before.
like an average past years.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
but I just, it really bothers me the way these guys are being paid.
No, I'm not a fan of it either.
The other thing that you guys might wanna take a look at, well, before you leave, or another day if you want, but, so one of the guys, Andrew, he, really talented guy, he knew that we were gonna be getting a gear washer, and we don't have a way to dry the gear, and you can buy these gear drying racks online, these fire service places. It's about $20,000 for this rack to dry gear.
Which
So
is
he-
about what we paid in Dover, I
He
think.
said, bet, watch, and he made us a gear drying rack over here. And, he has about $1,000 worth of materials, and all this time, and he donated that
Mhm.
to the department. If you have time, check it out, it's pretty cool, and it's a huge asset, so.
Yeah. I saw your picture of it, but I'll walk out with you and take a look at it
I
tonight.
see it on Facebook.
Yeah, it's really cool, so.
That's cool. All right, let's move on. Item 7 is town manager's report, which we've done a good portion of.
Yeah, I'll be brief. The first two bullet points we've covered in depth. 6 Mill Street, we hit that at the beginning here, didn't we? So
No, no, we haven't. We have not discussed that in the meeting.
Well, 6 Mill Street, the occupant there contacted the adult protective worker on December 12th. She'd had a fall, she was cold, she was ready to do something different. Michelle and I worked with adult protective, and we had made arrangements that we were gonna help pay for a hotel room. Had everything all set to take place on Friday the 13th, the next day, and she changed her mind, decided she wanted to stay in her home. She has that right. So that was just left. As of Monday, and we learned this anecdotally, is that the ambulance came and picked her up and took her to the hospital. We do not, because of confidentiality, we can't even call and ask.
Right.
I mean, we have no idea where things stand at 6 Mill Street right now.
The last report, she's been,
One of these.
I stole her and then just.
Look at this, Jim. I'm not seeing what you're talking about.
So, that's all we have on that. Michelle, Kelsey and I did meet with, John and Angie from Androscoggin Bank very briefly. We determined that after the books close, everything, when we get a chance to catch your breath, we're gonna change things over. We're gonna start the process of changing over to Androscoggin Bank that you authorized at your last meeting. We have received, and I shared this with the board by email, communication from the attorneys, placing a lien on the Nesbit property. Started work preparing for the budget, spending a ton of time researching grants. And this last long paragraph on the next page, I'll kind of paraphrase. When we get into the new calendar year, there are 2 or 3 goals that I have when we get into the outside of the work sessions. We need to get the forestry, we've got the road committee active. The town hall committee is gonna be active, they're meeting the first time on the 21st of January. to organize and get their officers selected, their work plan created. We still need to get forestry, we need to meet with the rec committee, just to make sure we're all on the same page. We need to get forestry and economic development committees active again, and I'd like us to create a cemetery committee. Because, what's the one word you would use to describe the, recording of our cemetery records right now, Michelle?
A disaster.
It's disrespectful to them.
We need some help. And I think there are people that have voiced interest in that, and we need some help at a lot of different levels when it comes to cemeteries. The biggest one is helping Michelle Kelsey and I make sense of these maps and figure out where people are actually buried. And that people are where they're supposed to be and we have a record of it. We need to make sure that our perpetual care money is being spent the way it's supposed to be spent and not just swept into our general fund. We really have to do some work on some of our old marble headstones in these cemeteries. And I'm hoping we can use volunteer work to do a lot of that.
And we're going to fall into the river, one of our cemeteries.
I'm going to have, I think I'm gonna be able to get some free engineering advice on that. I'm working on that through the university. To tell us what we have to do there. And then again, that might be one of those areas where I'm gonna go looking for grant money to deal with that. But anyway, we have several cemetery issues. I'd like to have a cemetery committee. Our boards and committees policy doesn't have any provision for that, but we could easily create one and have you guys just vote it in. So those are some things I'm looking at for committees. The other thing is we really need to make sure that three of you, myself and the budget committee, are all on the same page on the budget we're putting together in January and February. Beyond that, that's when I really want to get into this policy and ordinance review. But to try to get about our ordinances all reviewed before the March town meeting is a little too aggressive. That's something I think we spread out over a year. Because one of the things, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, you guys are doing a hell of a job as a board of selectmen. We don't want to burn you out. So we need to keep the work sessions to what's reasonable. And if we have reasonable work session requirements on this board, then when certain committees are meeting, if a select board member wants to show up and sit in and listen to what's going on, it's not as much of a drain on you, because let's face it, you know, this is not, being a selectman is not meant to be a 40-hour job, a 40-hour-a-week job. So we need to make sure we've got your time commitment down to something that's not burning you guys out. And that pretty much covers what I said in that big long verbose paragraph. And which you should be ebullient that we want you, that your town office staff wants you to work less. So, road commissioner report, I'll hit that real quick. During the past 2 weeks, we've had 3 winter storms. I inspected the roads after these storms. Josh helped with some of that. We had some minor issues. I discussed them with Chris, and he addressed them. I felt that he addressed them in a timely manner and a positive manner. I have no complaints. Because of the wind and rain from the December 11th, 12th storm, I thought that might end up going into one of these FEMA categories. So I went out and rode every road and photographed every tree down and every washout. And I've got those pictures on my phone, but I don't think that's gonna go in. I don't think that was a significant enough storm to get a disaster declaration. I just wanted to be prepared. We had 2 minor washouts, Knowlton's Mills Road and Gray Hill Road. Scott has repaired those. We had a few trees, dead tree at Flanders Hill and one on Knowlton's Mills that he took care of for us as well. And our road committee met informally because I didn't post any type of agenda on that. So we met informally the day of the special town meeting. And we discussed some priorities, and it was a positive meeting. Jamie and Butch have done a lot of work all on their own. Both very knowledgeable, and, you know, we'll go from there. That's pretty much what I have.
How many do we have on the forestry committee?
One.
One?
I think we have 2.
We had interest from John Armstrong and Toby Hall. right?
John Armstrong did get on. I knew it was Toby, but I didn't know John got on.
And Dennis Campbell's on it.
And Dennis Campbell.
Good.
Why?
I'm just thinking of a possible conflict there.
Well, you know something I don't, obviously.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a possibility you may be involved in this
Oh, with the,
litigation or.
yeah. I don't know, is he truly involved in that?
I got a letter.
Yeah. But I'm not sure the letter came from her. I mean, the letter came from the attorney, but I don't know if the attorney was operating on good information.
And then you have to look at the premise of the committee. A committee is put together to bring advice and opinions together, not necessarily to make
I'm not saying it's
decisions.
bad choice, I'm just thinking, you know, this other thing might have some kind of involvement.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Just-
we could definitely check with MMA on that,
Right.
but I doubt they're gonna offer us much in the way of an opinion, but we can
If you
check.
can get them to call you back,
If I can get them to call me back.
which seems to be the case. Which this is, we might as well label this select board concerns item 9 while we're talking.
On the Kinney situation, or the?
No, just this general discussion. Select board concerns is our next item, so we might as well, that's a select board concern right there.
Possible conflict of interest.
Possible.
Just make sure it's not.
Fair enough.
While we're on select board concerns, did you happen to make it down to Haley's?
No, I have not. I need to do that. That's on another
I
list.
don't know if you guys have noticed, but they're plowing in the end of the sidewalk. Instead of pushing in their road, they push the end of it in. And I don't blame Chris in any way, but I wouldn't snow blow it either. But I mean, we've got a 30-foot section of sidewalk there that's,
Yep,
should be done, but,
there's so much snow that it can't be
right, so we need to,
addressed.
Yeah,
that addressed.
I'll get down there here in the next few days and make sure I talk with them.
Any other select board concerns?
my only other one is that Brian had talked to Nick Chambers from the school board, or Nick had called in. Nick asked to talk to me later on, so I talked to him. It does seem we have, over the first 3 storms, we had quite an issue with buses being able to go.
Mhm.
I mean, it was bad enough on French's Mills Road that it was stuck and they had to bring another bus and go out and tow that bus.
Mhm.
So, I think it's been addressed, but I wanted to bring it up and
Yep.
that it would be good if we were on it a little bit
Yep.
more. you
We
know,
had the same-
and I think it will, I do.
We had the same concerns on Dowdy Hill. I mean, when we had all those cars piled up on the hill, there was this much snow on the hill. And that was the day that the truck quit.
Right. And Dowdy Hill's hard, cause you've got a crown, like,
There's nothing good.
So,
you gotta ride the center of the road, I think.
Sometime or winter.
I went over there and pulled 9 vehicles up over the hill. And of the 9, 4 of them, the tires were as smooth as this table,
Yeah.
which is what started the whole thing.
Right.
So there's a responsibility that goes all the way around, and it goes back to the people operating on the road too.
Right.
And I think we need to kind of just remind people that, you know, everybody carries a little bit of responsibility here.
Right.
But people don't wanna hear that.
No, I understand.
And I was really glad to hear that Chris, when he broke down, instantly went out in his pickup. I'd rather
Yep.
see a pickup out there plowing than nothing.
Yep, yeah, Clint was on Dowdy Hill, he went down over the bank with his pickup.
It helps slow down anyway, though.
I wanted to bring it up because he made a specific phone call to me to address it.
Mhm.
And it is buses, so,
Yep,
you know,
I think from this point, Chris has got the word, and I think Chris tries to do hard, I think he tries really hard to do it.
I do, and I've never worked with these guys before this year. I don't even really know them that well, and, you know, I don't, yeah, they had some issues the first couple of storms, but,
Yep,
you know, that's not an easy gig.
no,
And to be doing it at the cost they're doing it to the taxpayers.
that's what I keep going right back to right there.
We have to go back to that because, you know, the financial discussion we just had would look very different if we were paying
Another
somebody else
100,000.
twice what we're paying Chris and Warren.
Right,
So like you said, there's a balance, we gotta work with it. Yes, we need to bring it to his attention, and I did that, like I said, that last storm where you and I talked. I went out, there were a few issues, I brought them to Chris's attention, he took great care of them.
and I think our job, the job of representing the people, is to just keep our thumb on that, that's
Yeah.
all.
So every time we get more than a couple inches of snow, I'll be out riding roads or if we get some ice, I'll be out riding and checking roads.
Yep,
It's coming tonight, I think. Tonight, tomorrow.
It's both 1 to 3
3,
possible.
4 to 6, or whichever station you look at.
If we get substantial snow tonight, at some point tomorrow morning, I'll go out and take a look at, and I'm not gonna ride every road every storm because, that's a 3-hour project in this town. I've discovered it, not to mention, that, was taking more money that you're reimbursing me to ride around and look at roads, so.
I also know,
I do an hour and 15.
depending on what time it starts, he's going out.
I use a reasonable friggin' speed when
We're
I
supposed to
do
be done
it.
by 4, and now we're supposed to get 2,
Yeah, but I don't
as
say-
of this morning, so he's gonna hit the hot top, but just sand the dirt, because he's like,
Well, that's gonna be-
plow it, it's just gonna
it's
peel
gonna
it
be a
all up,
mess.
so he's leaving the dirt
dirt roads
as a
are
heads
actually-
up for you guys.
Well, that's the way,
And then
at least
sand
let
it.
them drive on it a while and pack it down.
Right.
If you get that much snow.
He said he'll destroy the roads,
Right,
so
Right.
just
yeah,
heads
well, I'll
up,
be on my front
as
lawn,
of this morning.
which has happened before. but
Right.
I'm okay.
all right, we gotta move on, item 10, we have an executive session. It's personnel matters, it's 1 MRSA subsection 405 6A. So I make a motion that we go into executive session.
Secretary.
What's the time?
And time noted is 8:03.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 8:16, we've returned from executive session. We discussed personnel policy changes, with an expected draft of those changes for the January 8th select board meeting.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second that motion. We are adjourned.